Hey, Sammy here. Gonna do a quick tutorial on macro photography using a 50mm lens with the Raynox 250. Um, Real inexpensive setup to get started in macro, and the Canon f1.8 50mm, also nicknamed the Nifty 50, is an awesome lens. It's 50mm prime with a 1.8 aperture, which is really fast, and it's only $100, and you can even find it used sometimes for around 50, which is pretty awesome for a 1.8 aperture lens. If you've looked at those, I'm sure you'll be surprised at the price on how cheap it is, because most of the time when you get into that f1 point, f2.8 and faster, the price of lenses go way up. So anyway, rambled on. So 50mm Raynox 250, and this little diffuser to work with the pop-up flash. So this basic startup for macro, just close-up. Well, I guess it's close-up technically, since it's not one-to-one, but yeah, let's get into it. Okay, and then the Raynox 250. This is a cool little thing, lens to give you some awesome magnification. And it is just this little lens, and you can see like the detail on my hand. That's all it is. It's just like a really thick magnifying lens. So it comes with this little adapter it goes up to 67mm to hook on like you would a filter. Instead of screwing on, it's a snap-on, which is real convenient, so you can take it off and on every now and then. And here we got my 50mm, and I'm just gonna stick it on. Boom, there we go, ready to go. This is an intro video, but I do want to touch on to manual mode. Just, there's a lot, most people are like, oh, manual's for the professionals. Well, you got to learn it at some point, and the quicker you get into using it, the more comfortable you'll be working with it. And there's a cool thing with the flash, and it's going to adjust its brightness based on what you have set. So the higher my f-stop is, the brighter my flash will be. So just to play around, to give you a feel for this, and this is going to be to capture a lot of detail, so bugs in particular, is you're going to want to set, and depending on what camera you have, it's going to be a little different. If you hit the key, most Canon cameras have a Q button, and then you can go through and adjust these settings, but for fun, go ahead and do a shutter speed of 1/200th, f16, and then we're going to switch our ISO to 200. And then flash exposure, we're going to go +1. If you don't have a +1 in the menu, usually under the shooting menu, you're going to see this flash control setting. And once you're in there, We're gonna go with the built-in flash settings. And this is exposure compensation. And just +1. And the +1 is to compensate for the diffuser. Okay, and now we're going to play around with this. So this is to have fun, you know. This is just to learn. This is geared if you've never used manual, you're just starting out. This is to play with. You'll get comfortable with this over time. But these settings will be great for playing around. And that's with a pop-up flash, 1/200th f16, ISO 200, +1 flash compensation, and the Raynox 250 on board. It's a lot there, but you're not going to have to worry about it. Like, once you set it, you go play with it. And then after you play with it, then you look at what you get and determine from there if you want to tweak your settings. So I personally like to play with the f-stop to move that around, just to see the different levels of detail I can capture from like bugs and flowers. So here's that. So we're going to go into the field and shoot using these settings too, to give you a feel for that. Let's go. Okay, so here's a wasp on some alyssum. And we're going to zoom out. Go with the 1/20th f16 ISO 200 using the diffuser and the flash, and I'll take a few shots. And then for a quick note, I'm doing everything in manual focus. And you want to rotate your focus ring clockwise as far as it'll go. And okay, so, and you want to be doing everything with manual focus. And then you're going to be focusing by moving the camera back and forth. See, in focus, out of focus, and that's showing you your depth of field. So that'll be wide open in your preview. And then once you have your shot in focus, take a picture. But yeah, you want to manual focus and get your subject in focus just by moving your camera back and forth. Let's see. There's a fly. It's hard to get him in focus from my looking through my camera. So yeah, there's the fly. So I'll put that up on the screen so you can see it better. But that's all I'm doing. So manual focus, and then moving back and forth. And then we're at the 1/200th f16 ISO 200 with the flash diffused and +1 flash exposure compensation. Yeah, and I'm not going to change those settings at all. I'm just going to play around with it and take some more shots. And here's a little stink bug. Get him in focus. Crawling around. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to hold a background behind him. Now with my other lens that I use, this is big enough. With this setup, this is really small. So everything I'm going to have this background behind, I'm going to have to crop that picture. But it still will work. I just have to crop a bit. And then here's another wasp. I just took a few pictures with him. Sorry for all the cords. So that turned out really nice. Again, my background, I should have moved it up a little higher. I'll try some more, but I can crop that. Okay, so those are good pictures showing this off, and I want to explain the settings a little bit. So with the 1/200th, that's the fast you can go 1/250th with the flash, but I do 1/200th because on a full frame camera you can only do 1/200th is the fastest. So just for consistency there. And then f16 is an aperture f-stop that I'm used to using to get a lot of detail. And that's just an aperture that's my go-to when I want to get a lot of detail in bugs. And then the ISO, that adds artificial light. And that's what makes pictures grainy. And you see it a lot in, like if you're taking any night photos in the dark, all that noise, that's caused by ISO. And the lower that number is, the smoother your picture's going to look. And ISO, you can go down to ISO 100. Your flash is just going to be a lot brighter when you go down there. So ISO 200 gives enough to take a little bit off the flash. And that's the rundown for manual to play with. To explore, you can play around with lowering your f-stop. And I'll do one at f1.8, which would be wide open on the nifty 50. I got to find a subject, but I'll start filming when I find something and take one at that to show you what that does. Okay, and I knew this would happen, but I wanted to show it. So at f1.8, that's letting so much light in, it's overexposed. And I have my camera set up to flash on anything that's overexposed. So if you have that happen, you're going to have to close up that aperture. Let's see what f2.8 does on this Apple real quick. So yeah, at f2.8, it can do its job. It's just 1.8 is so wide open with that flash, it's just too much light. Yeah, it's like taking a picture of the sun, looking at it, it'll just be white. Okay, the wasp didn't cooperate with me, so I used this goldenrod. It is goldenrod, it is gone to seed, so that's why it's fluffy. To get it exposed with these settings, I had to change it to all the way up to f6.3. So just keep that in mind. If you're getting overexposed, this is playing with the exposure triangle. And in a nutshell, you have to adjust your shutter speed, your aperture, and your ISO to properly expose your picture. And with macro, aperture is my go-to for adjusting because you want to control that depth of field. So right here at 6.3, you can see that I have in focus the little front puffy part, and then I held my finger in the back so you could see it. See, it's all blurred out. That's with the shallow depth of field, and then that's what you get to play with. So it lets you blur the background and get some artistic effects, and primarily is to make what you have in focus stand out a lot more. So just play around with that. Also, if you're going to these lower f-stops, you can go to ISO 100 or as low as it'll go, because even like if I go to 8, I'm sure this will still be overexposed. Get it focused, nice. It's weird focusing through the phone. So even there, it's overexposed. But that's what the without the flash is for. So it's you can jump between using a flash and not using a flash depending on what you're trying to do. So that'll wrap up manual for now. It's just introductory to it, so you can get in there, play around with it, and don't worry if you get overexposed pictures. You know, if I go 1/30th of a second, I mean, if you see that, you know, you gotta adjust something, but don't worry about it. That's how you learn, is just by playing with your settings. So go out, try it out. That's the part of learning. I just want to show what you can get with this combo, with this setup, and just playing around. So that'll do it for the manual. Woo. Okay, so now we're gonna go with the aperture priority mode, and that is the AV on Canon cameras. And since this is going to be geared towards 50 millimeter, the nifty 50 at 1.8, so introductory type of macro with the Raynox, and this mode is shooting in this way, in aperture priority mode, is going to give you a good idea, a good understanding of depth of field. And you'll hear that word a lot when you look at videos, photography, info. There's a lot of talk about depth of field, shallow depth of field. Everyone likes their depth of field. There's even hashtags on Instagram like depth of field porn and stuff like that. But what that is your the area of your picture that's in focus. And the best way to show it on camera is to put it in live view and show you how the focus works. So as I move closer, you can see what comes in focus shift. So here it's like the tips, and then the white puffs. Take a picture of that. But so that little layer of in focus, that's your depth of field. And that gets smaller the higher your f-stop is. So at 1/8, it's very small. So this is like the artistic effect. You can get some extremely beautiful photo pictures, or pictures with that. Like here, I'll zoom in a little. But I think that's just beautiful. I really love this combination. I need to use it a lot more. I've been pretty obsessed with my 1 to 5 times macro, but you get to really choose what you want in focus. And yeah, like this little stump, like this is really good too. You can see as I just slowly move that forward, that you can see the focus shift. So that's right on the tip of the bark is what I'm looking at. So see, you can just move that, and then that's super fun. And in combination with this Raynox, you can get some really magical looking flower pictures. I have to go back up to the greenhouse to find that, but this looks really good. I like that. And that's in a nutshell. Like, I mean, I'm not going to go too in depth because, you know, ISO, auto, manual focus. If you want to do macro, get in the habit of manual focus. Just it gives you a lot more control. The autofocus for cameras, while good, struggles. Well, it doesn't really struggle too bad. It'll get in focus. The biggest problem is holding your camera steady, like when you're hand holding. To autofocus and hold it steady, you know, it's usually, once you get it in focus, by the time you took the picture, you've already moved. So that's why manual focus is really important for macro. So there's that. And then, you know, just play around with the aperture. And just remember, the higher that aperture number gets, the more you're going to see. So there's actually a depth of field preview button on my camera, which I'm holding it down. So that's wide open. And then that's at 10, aperture 10. So I'll use this and I'll just take some pictures, and then I'll put them after this of the different. I'll just bump up the aperture from 1.8 to all the way up to f16, and just put those as a clip in the video so you can see. And I'll go ahead and do the aperture stop pictures with this Alyssum, just because it's really cool. Like, this shows the effect. Like, how neat is that? And then right here I can as I'm rolling it up. See how much more you can see. And then there at 20, you can see the ones in the background. 20 is the max this lens will go. So, wide open, really closed. Okay, and there's aperture priority mode. I didn't use a variety of subjects, but I think that goldenrod is great for showing the purpose of that mode. And it's nice, you know, so it calculates the ISO and shutter speed for you. And all you have to worry about is your aperture, and that will let you control your depth of field. So that's just how much of your picture do you want in focus is my way of explaining that. And yeah, just I know it gets frustrating to hear depth of field this, depth of field that, and then you eventually look it up, but that's my way of explaining it, and it's fun. That's, you know, 90% of the time when I'm out shooting photos, it's aperture priority. When I'm not using my extreme setup, when I'm not using my MPE and flash, and that's a whole different video. That's its own setup, but when I'm using my 100mm macro without a flash, aperture priority mode, and that's kind of where I'm at right now. Is, you know, when I'm using the flash, manual mode. When I'm using no flash, aperture priority mode, and just jump back and forth. You get comfortable the more you play with it. So there's my little tutorial. A quick recap: you wanna use the manual mode with the high f-stop number with the flash and the diffuser when you're trying to get a lot of detail, whether that's in a bug or a flower. Playing around in that area with those, or playing around with those settings, you know, with that configuration, that's the route you want to go for detail. Now, if you want to go the other way, for the artsy, blurry fun and all that excitement, then you go with the no flash aperture priority mode, keeping it wide open, or somewhere around there, you know, 1.8 to 4. Macro in general has really shallow depth of field anyway, so even with the aperture really closed at like the f16, it's still, you got a real little window of focus, and that's what the shallow depth of field. I just remember when I started photography, I heard that nonstop, and it's really just the area, the depth in your photo that's in focus. That's how it makes more sense to me. Or, you know, the thing that makes the background blurry. And a fun thing about the aperture is people that don't know anything about photography, who've never done it, just like you show them something. If you have, you know, an f1.8 wide open aperture and you got all that blur, usually they'll be like, wow, that's a professional looking picture. And the reason by that is, you know, if you ever watch movies and look close, you'll notice, and then, you know, most pictures of magazines, they have that real blurred background. And Same with movies, you'll notice it. It's like focused on the eyes, or the focus will shift. And so it's like subconsciously in people's head that that blurry background means professional. And another trick behind that is really fast lenses are expensive. So that's another reason. Most kit lenses can't do, they're at like f4, f5.6, so they can't really get that creamy background. So that's kind of a fun fact that I learned about depth of field and fast lenses. But yeah, hope you liked it. Let me know what you think. Ask me any questions. Really, I'm just trying to give you general info, see it in action, and then you go out and play, because that's how you learn. And I just want to get you going, and then you go figure out what works well for you. Play with the diffuser. You can do all sorts of fun with that. Change the material around, use thicker paper, more sheets of paper, different types of material, like milk. I know milk jugs, people like those. So yeah, hope you liked it. Let me know what you think. We'll see ya.